I want to tell you about how I got my kid to memorize his multiplication facts without using index cards. Those really weren't working for him. And so in his spelling book, I discovered a spelling study tip that I really thought could work for multiplication, and it totally did. So in the Spelling Power curriculum, they use something kind of like this to work on words that your kid misses. It's kind of like this. Look, point, say 3 times. Cover and say. Check to see if you're right. Close your eyes and say, and then write it. And I thought if you're taking pictures with your mind of words, my kid could take pictures of multiplication facts and memorize them that way. So here is an example. This is what we would do. I would pick only 4 or 5 for my kid. If you think yours can handle more, that's fine. Or if you think you need to do less, that's fine too. But I would just do a handful of them so it wasn't overwhelming. And so using this process, you would do it. Look, point, say 3 times. 3 times 6 is 18. 3 times 6 is 18. 3 times 6 is 18. And the reason why you want to look and point if you can and say it is because it helps you take a picture with your mind, and you're really stressing, try to take a picture with it, right? Then you cover it and you say it. 3 times 6 is 18. Were you right? You were. Okay, now we're going to close our eyes and say it. 3 times 6 is 18. Picturing it in our heads, okay? And now we're going to practice writing it. So that brings us down to this. Now, as you can see up here, I wrote it horizontally. And then when he practices writing it, he's practicing vertically, because obviously I need my kid to know that it all means the same thing when he sees that on his math worksheets. So he looks at it horizontal, we practice it vertical. 3 times 6 is 18. I went ahead and gave him this, and then he would write 3 times 6 is 18 all the way down. And then once he's done writing that all the way down, we move on to our 3 times 7s. Do the same process. 3 times 7, write it all the way down and practice. Then up here to 3 times 8, do the process, write it all the way down. Once they were done with that, then I did something that I called mix up. So mix up means you take all of those multiplication facts that they learned just on that side, so those 5, and then you mix them up right here. So as you can see though, I have swapped some of the factors. So I have 3 times 6 here, but then I have 6 times 3 here. Again, we're getting them used to understanding that the opposite is true, right? 6 times 3 and 3 times 6 equals the same number. But this is just them all mixed up without any answers. And they work on this. I would practice mix up for a couple of days with their new multiplication facts. Once you feel like that they have those, you go over back here again, and then you erase this, and it would be 3 times 10s through 3 times 12s, or in some schools, 3 times up to 3 times 15. We did up to 3 times 12 for ours. Once you are done with your factors of your 3s, and you are done with 3 times 0 up to 3 times 12, I did this. Once they've got their 3 times 0 up to 3 times 12, we would do what I called a full review with a super helpful website that I'll tell you about in a minute. But the full review is if you've done times 3s, then you've done times 2s, and you've done times 1s, and you've done times 0s, right? So the thing is, the key is to make sure that when they're memorizing their times 3s, the 2s aren't going out the door. The 2s are still in there, and the 1s are still in there, and the 0s are still in there. So you don't want them to forget what they've learned, but that's very difficult for kids to do if they don't have a lot of review. So once we were done with 3 times 0s up to 3 times 12s, we would do full review. And so that would be all of the factors that we've learned multiplied by all of the other factors that we've learned. So the best way to do that, easiest thing, is an amazing website. It's www.superteacherworksheets.com. No spaces. www.superteacherworksheets.com. When you open it up, on the left-hand side is all of the different kinds of math worksheets that you can create. One of those is going to be multiplication. You're going to select that. The next page it takes you to, it will say basic multiplication 0 through 12. That's the one that I would use. So when I select that, it opens up all these resources that I could use for basic multiplication 0 through 12. But the best one is the one that says basic multiplication worksheet generator. So you select that, it gives you a little form, and it tells you, asks you, do you want 50 problems per page or 25? I did 50 because practice makes perfect. And then it asks you what you want your first factor to be. So in this case, it would be first factor range can be 0 to 12. Second factor range can be 0 to 3. And it does flip them on you. So it's kind of nice because it does make them practice that. But once you're done with that, you hit create worksheet, the little button at the bottom, and boom, within like a millisecond, a worksheet is created, and right after that is a teacher key. So you can print that and you can put it in a page protector, or you can put it in a Pocket Pro, and you can have your kid just practice it. What we did for speed math and just rapid recall, I would have him practice that worksheet a few times, but then I would give it to him and I would time him, and for a 50 problem worksheet, I would give him 2 minutes and 45 seconds. So obviously when you're only doing 0s to 3s times 0s to 12s, you're going to have a lot of doubling up. So you might have 3 times 6, 2 or 3 times, right? And all of that. But that's great because it's just reinforcing their memory. But so I would time him 2 minutes and 45 seconds. If he missed any of them, we continued to take that kind of speed math test over and over and over until he could do it in 2 minutes and 45 seconds and not get any of them wrong. To make it a little bit more fun and rewarding, and to give him something to look at and me something to keep, we called it our Castle Math. And I'm going to attach the Castle Math page that I used down below. But what was so fun about it is once he knew all of his time zeros, it's pretty simple, right? But once he knew all of them and he mastered that test that's just all zeros, once he did that, there's a sheet, and that's the one that I'm going to attach below in the notes, but it would have a 0 like on a door, and he could color in the door of the castle. Then whenever it's times ones, once he's completed that and done it in 2 minutes and 45 seconds, he colors in a window, and then the 3s were one of the turrets. Then by the time it's all done, he's completed his multiplication facts, and he has a beautifully colored castle for him to keep for a little bit, and then me, of course, to keep forever. So that is how I taught my child multiplication using a spelling study rule, and it worked great.